Hello, lovelies. Welcome to another episode. I am so excited today for our special guest, Nermeen Zachary. We talk about how our strengths could have a negative or a positive impact on our partner or our relationship, depending on how we use them. But before we turn to the episode, I would like to give a shout out to Beijit for being a loyal listener. I have a wonderful topic today, one that is close and dear to my heart, little different than the usual. So I'm so excited to bring this to you. And that is about talking about strengths. And of course, we focus on the positive and we talk about strengths all the time. But we have this very special way of talking about them today so that we could use them properly, identify them, use them in our relationship, know our partners, and they bring theirs to us. And then together we could create that amazing relationship that we want. And to have this conversation, who better than Nermeen Zachary? I am so excited to bring her to you today. She's a certified people acuity coach and a positive intelligence coach, specializing in the application of strengths to accelerate performance, energy, relationships, and results. Positive intelligence as the layer of mental fitness, how to handle life from a positive mindset and perspective to ensure a lifelong application of our strengths so that we can create what we want. Nermeen coaches individuals and small groups and also facilitates workshops to teach strategies for clients to define their optimal zones, how they operate in their best, and how to thrive there. Nermeen comes to strengths and positive intelligence with 15 years of experience in the training industry. She holds a master's degree in education, specializing in instructional design for online learning. She is a learned cookie. We love that. And I love that she brings this very specialized knowledge that I want to enrich our conversation with. I am so excited to have you here, Nermeen. Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Emma. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. I am so excited that we decided to do this and we're going to have so much fun. Okay, so why are we talking about strengths? What are strengths? Go right ahead. Hook us up with
All right.
that.
All right. What is a strength? A strength is, first of all, our natural way of thinking, feeling, and doing. And so we kind of, when we build on that, we start with those are our natural talents, the ways we naturally think, feel, and behave. When we build on that with knowledge, when we add skills, when we practice, we produce then a strength, which is defined by Gallup, our ability to consistently provide near perfect performance in a specific activity. So that is the beginnings of the understanding what a strength is.
That it's amazing. So we're saying, okay, so the way that we look at things, the way that we feel, and the way that we act, our specific, unique way of doing those three things is our strength, right? In a
Exactly.
nutshell.
Yeah.
And when we know what that is in our style or our version of it, we could really then bring our strengths to create the highest performance or the best quality of life or the best relationship.
Exactly.
Excellent. Very, very nice. Very nice. So, how would you know what your strengths are given those three things? What would you say? How would you distill them? And how would you know what your strengths are?
Oh, I love that question because I think when I was first introduced to strengths, certainly if someone had asked me, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. We know that in interviews, people get asked, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I would not have been able to tell you.
Mm.
And what's wonderful in our day and age is that there's been much research done and wonderful assessments to help us identify and label our strengths. So now we have a language. We can become fluent in this language of strengths. And so one of the strengths, one of the tools that I use in my coaching practice is the Clifton Strengths Assessment. And again, it's based on many years of research. They've uncovered hundreds of talents. And in the process of categorizing them and grouping them, they mathematically organized them into these 34 general talent themes. And and then they created an assessment for us. So
That's
completing
convenient.
it is very convenient. And with this assessment, it ranks all 34 talent themes for you in the order of dominance. And all we really need is our top 5 to get started in our strengths journey.
Oh, I love that. I love that little background. As I shared with you before we started recording, I have done the assessment. I have mine, and I swear by them because I know how, I mean, I just feel them. I know that when I lean into this strength that I am super happy, let's say, right? Like that's the easiest way to describe this. And so when I'm capitalizing on them, that's when I'm the most productive, the most inspired, the most happy, joyful, and I mean all the things happen, all the bells ring, right? If you may.
Yeah.
And I love that little background in that it comes from the research, and all of the data was broken down into these 34 categories and the most prevalent ones, and sorted in a way that when we know our top 5, it's sorted so that we could understand the data. And then when we only need to identify our top 5, and with that, we're pretty hooked up. Like we could pretty much play with those 5 and really synchronize with ourselves, synchronize with our environment, synchronize with our partner, synchronize with whatever we're trying to do. I might be getting ahead of myself here, but we could use just 5, right? I mean, of course, knowing everything's probably great, but just our top 5, and we could have an educated conversation about our strengths as opposed to taking a guess or not having common language. I love that too.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very, very good. And so, what would you suggest then from there?
So I would definitely recommend completing the assessment and diving into your reports and having a conversation with someone who's close to you or people who are in your close circles, and ask them, well, what do you see as my strengths? How do you see me
Mm,
contributing?
mm,
Where do I make an impact, or what are you always looking for and waiting on from me? So, the thing is, it's important to have that outside reflection. Something else that you can do, and I think is really helpful, is to start noticing where you are, the activities that you're naturally drawn to. Think about, when does learning come easy for me? Also, when am I feeling that deep, deep satisfaction, contentment when I've completed an activity? Or when do you experience timelessness? You are so engrossed in an activity and you just lose all track of time.
mm,
And finally, something else to really pay attention to is those glimpses of excellence. When you completed something and you're like, wow, I just did that. And really take stock of those things. Start noticing and paying attention.
mm. I love how you listed all the different ways in that we could be aware, like what could be indicators of
Yeah.
where what our strengths or positive mojo is, and just how to be mindful. I love the first part of that is how to ask for that feedback. You could ask your friends, your family, your definitely your partner. When do I make the most impact? I love that. When do I make the most impact? What are the things that you kind of expect from me because you know that I'm good at it? What are the things that I take care of for us that you appreciate, that you know that they follow or flow from my strength, right? So getting that feedback, and then also being aware for ourselves in all the different ways where there's blessed in the moment, if you may, in different ways, either achievements, working, participating in something or whatever, contributing in some way, where we get that internal knowledge of like, okay, I think I'm onto something right now.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Can I add something to that? Just the importance, why it's important to have that outside reflection,
Of
and,
course.
and why the tool is so important. Our strengths are so innate to us, Emma, that most of the time we can't really see them. It's just how I show up. It's what I do. It's my easy button. It's how I make decisions. I don't think it's anything special. It's just who I am. And that's why it's so useful to have an external source, something outside of me to help me see my gifts. And so having that personal reflection time, paying attention, having the Strengths Finder results, and having conversations with others is extremely helpful in beginning to really see what's unique and special about me.
That's so pretty. Yeah, that is such a valid point too, in that we take it for granted. This is who we are. This is how we operate. This is how we show up. Whatever. This is what I do. Um, we might know that it's a skill set or a strength to some extent. Like this is the thing that I'm good at. Something like that, maybe. But we might not be as aware of like to the extent that this is woven into the fabric of who we are, how we are showing up with that, and how others pick it up. Like they that's the essence of us, kind of like they just kind of this is how they would describe us ultimately, right? So that's so good to have their feedback. The assessment will confirm, will give it language for the things,
Exactly.
and then just keeping an eyeball on our own experience, that awareness, that's helpful as well. Awesome. Is there a time when our strengths, I don't know if this is a tricky question, when our strengths are actually our weaknesses? Is that, I don't know if that's that's a weird thought.
No, it's actually it's a real thing.
Perfect.
It's a real thing because our strengths are just how we show up, what we do. They're innate to us. Uh, we're comfortable in them, right? So when we're comfortable in them, we tend to use them and sometimes overuse them.
Ah,
And when we know that when we overuse something or sometimes underuse it, right? When we overuse, especially anything in extreme, we know that anything in extreme becomes a lot less effective than when something is done in its proper amounts in moderation. So when I overuse a strength, then it's very likely it can show up and present itself as a weakness.
mm,
I can give you a very specific example.
please, that's
My
beautiful.
my I lead with adaptability. Adaptability is my number one strength,
Mm,
and it affords me allows me to be flexible, and it allows me to create options. Uh, I love variety and bring that into so much of everything that I do. Now, again, that's in its proper amounts. When I overuse my flexibility, I
mm-hmm.
become so flexible to the point where I can't make a decision.
Love
And
it.
and it hurts me and it hurts the people around me. I can't, you know, it doesn't serve my relationships when I can't make a decision.
Right.
And and it gets in the way of my effectiveness.
Right.
On the flip side, there might be times when I choose to not use it for whatever reason. And then I become stubborn.
Oh,
And
how
the flip side,
interesting.
right? So this gift, on one side, it's overdone. It's not helping. On the other side, and then I could show up as not being flexible at all.
Right. I love that. Wow. This is taking my knowledge of strengths and of this particular concept of strengths to a whole new level. I love it. I think that that observation of where you could go to the polarity where, okay, so if I'm being too flexible, too adaptable, then I can make decisions because it's like, okay, whatever you want, yeah, anything goes. And then how do you choose, right? So I totally get that. I also here and there an element of people pleasing, right? So if it goes to the
Mhm.
extreme, it's like flexible and adaptable to the point where what everybody else wants goes first, and
Yeah.
maybe I could lose myself in that if that were the case. And I love the observation where it plays out how it plays out on the other side. Well, I'm not going to use my adaptability and therefore I could be stubborn and not flexible at all. I love it. Wow.
Yeah.
I can't wait to dive into mine now. This is getting
I
super
know the
exciting.
suspense is killing me, Emma.
I know. So just for the audience, for those of you listening, Noreen and I chose not to disclose my strengths so that she could be properly shocked when I share them on the show. All right, very good. I love it. Let's see if before we dive, I mean, is this a good time to dive into mine, you think? Or should we first go into the contributions and the needs that are inherent in the strengths? What do you think would make more sense?
Well, let's why don't we give some context around that
Yes,
first,
please.
that idea, and then see how they play out with your strengths. Something really important to understand, it's foundational in the application of strengths, is that our strengths inform the types of contributions that we make and also what we need in order to show up at our best. And it's really important to understand, to be able to articulate what it is that you do contribute, and not only what you contribute, but the impact that it makes, because you're making an impact. These beautiful gifts that you bring into the world have an incredible potential, and so it's really important to see where they have and what else is possible. And by the same token, in order for me to show up, certain needs have to be met. There's a certain environment and certain conditions under which I thrive. And the more I understand what those needs are, the better equipped I am in order to get them met, so that I can perform at my best.
So good, exactly. So for me to be able to use my strengths properly, I need to be in an okay place. So I need to be resourced. I have to have my needs met, and my environment needs to be a certain way. So a little clarification. So do their specific strengths have like their own needs that are associated with them, and therefore it's good for me to know what my strengths are, and therefore what I need to be able to use that strength properly. Gotcha. That's so good. So perfect. Anything else about that in terms of what might that look like with a strength, and what might be a need, so that we can utilize our strength properly? Any thoughts about that?
An example would be, for example, so I offer flexibility, right, in my adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
One of the, I need that flexibility. I need kind of
Mm.
space to make decisions. Packing for me is horrendous. Packing for a trip, especially to a place I've never been, is an excruciatingly painful
Oh my gosh, I
exercise.
could totally relate. I could totally relate, even though this is not one of mine, but I could totally relate. Like you have to cover all of your bases, right? Do I need the bathing suit? Do I need the hiking boots? Do I need the raincoat? Do I need all of the things, right?
Exactly. So it's what I've learned. I need space to really consider, and I also need options, because
Mm,
when I'm in a new place, I might decide that I'm in the mood for this instead of that. I need
right.
options. So I have to figure out how to realistically pack for some options, especially
Mm.
when I'm traveling by plane. And when we're traveling by car, um, my husband knows now that I just need an extra bag for my shoes, and
Right.
and one or two other purses, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's understanding, and God bless him. He's given me the space to, just to have, really, to create. I need the options. I need the
I
options.
love that. That is so smart. Yeah. So how do we pack to build in the flexibility to then when we are at the place that we're going to be able to exercise those choices in that
Exactly.
adaptability. So yes, I could go to the top of the mountain. I could also go to the bottom of the sea, right? So
Yeah.
good. Perfect. Very nice. Okay. So are you ready for mine?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So my first one is achiever. My second one is futuristic. My third one is strategic. My fourth one is relator. Thank goodness. And my fifth one is focus. I know. That's what I was waiting for. Exactly.
Wow.
I know I'm special.
You are. You absolutely are. And these are amazing.
Okay,
Amazing.
so
All
tell me, what
right.
do you make of them?
Well, all right. So this is a good time, Emma, to just share a little bit more, share just another layer of
Okay,
strengths that would be very useful in understanding your top five.
perfect. Hmm.
Strengths-based leadership
Hmm.
further categorized the 34 talent themes. What they found was that half of them are task-oriented,
Mm.
and the other half are relationship-oriented. The task-oriented strengths have two ends of the spectrum. We have our strategic thinkers, and we have people who with executing strengths.
Hmm.
On the relationship side, we have our influencers on one end of the spectrum, and we have our relationship builders
Hmm.
on one end of the spectrum. And let me just kind of further define them for you real quick.
So
Our strategic,
let's recap that first a little bit. Let me make sure that I followed you, and this is also for our audience.
Mhm.
So the people who did the research had these 34 final strengths. They further sorted them into two areas: the tasks oriented ones and the relationship oriented ones. The task oriented ones fall under the strategic thinking and executing like doing stuff. And the relationship ones fall under the influencing and relationship, like actually relating, interacting. Correct?
Exactly.
All right, perfect.
Beautiful. So our strategic thinkers are the ones who keep us focused on possibilities, on what could be.
Mm-hmm.
Executing strengths are the ones who make it happen. They're the doing.
Mm-hmm.
Our influencers are the ones who take the team's ideas and sell them to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And our relationship builders are the glue that hold us together.
Mm.
So, my friend, you have two executing strengths. You lead with an executing strength, so achiever and focus.
Right,
You have two strategic thinking strengths,
right.
futuristic and strategic.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a relationship building strength in relator.
Right.
So that's what's beautiful is that you're about making stuff happen. And I love your focus, that you're able to shut out what's not relevant in the moment and keep us on track.
Mm-hmm.
And achiever just it looks for excellence, looks for you love your to-do lists probably, and you've a good day is when everything that you had planned to do got done.
That's right.
And so it's really about accomplishment every single day. Small things, big projects.
Mm-hmm.
With focus, you have that stamina too to stay on course and finish what you start.
Yep.
So between the two of those, you're you make things happen. You make things happen. Now, futuristic and strategic. Futuristic means you have a vision for the future. You see a few steps ahead, and uh, more so than others. You
Mm.
you know where you can take us. You know what the possibilities are.
Yep.
What's beautiful about the combination with strategic is you have a plan. So you have a vision and you've got a plan for how to get us there.
That is right.
And if in this and it's okay, you're flexible in that you're not stuck on your plan because you've got plan A, B, and C.
That's right.
You always got a plan B. And if plan A doesn't work, no worries, no problem. On to the next thing.
What I love about this observation and looking at it this way is that as you were saying that, I'm thinking of the couples that I work with and how I apply these strengths to my couples work, right? So I have a vision for them. I know they're going to be fine. They're going to be amazing. They're going to be epic. And I know how I'm going to get them there, right? And so I love that side of those strengths, the way that you set them. It totally brought me back into like, yep, that's how I hook up my clients.
Yeah.
That's how I help the couples, right? So I see the vision for them. So that's beautiful.
That's incredible. Incredible. And and then Relator really thrives on those close relationships, one-on-one. You have a gift for connecting with
Mhm.
individuals and thrive on that teamwork. There's something really powerful, but you have your couples in a meeting with you and you're in it together. Like we're gonna figure this out.
That's
And
right.
then there's nothing more probably fulfilling, I would imagine, than achieving it together. This, the Relator loves that the teamwork and the doing it together. Achiever is satisfied. You stay focused with them. You know exactly. I love what you said. You have a vision for where the relationship can go, and you know exactly how you're going to get them there. And you
Mhm.
do it together, and you connect with them in a very special way. And you
Beautiful. Yes, all of that so resonates. Thank you. Yeah, the relator part when I mean, I have so much doing, right? I have so much of the task side of that whole equation. So most of my strengths are task focused, not the relationship focus, which is an interesting observation given that I'm a relationship therapist. But when we throw in that relator, right?
that's your connection.
And I love that you called that the glue earlier. And when that piece gets neglected, because from all the other the other four could overpower the relator, right? And so I had to be very intentional that I nurture that relator part and that I take care of it and that I give it everything that it needs so that I feel balanced and I don't spend myself. The other strengths could spend me, right? So and we're gonna get into the what we need and the
I
weaknesses
love
side
it.
of this now, right?
Yeah.
So I love this. And in terms of my work with couples, of course, if I the relators like that connection, like I feel them, right? And I just bring the piece where the three of us is usually a couple setting, we are connected, and I feel the connection between them, and even if they don't feel it, right? It's very interesting. And so yeah, so if I didn't have that relator, poor me.
I love the observation that you made, Emma, about that your task oriented strengths
Mhm.
could overpower the the relator. And you bring us to a really important point, the importance of our strengths being in balance with each other.
Yes.
And that's when we show up at our best. It's actually one of my clients, uh, till this day, every time we meet, she talks about this aha moment that it was like the particular when we were reviewing some success stories or previous employment, just my most satisfying and most successful experience was when all of my strengths were at play and they were
Yes.
allowed to play together at the proper amounts, and that's all of them have an opportunity to show up, and I get to use them in the proper amounts. It's when one of them goes haywire or decides to take control or goes into I'm really comfortable here, I'm going to go do a little bit more of this. That's when we get into trouble, and when we're out of balance, that's when we're not uh, presenting ourselves in our best light.
Right, exactly. Very, very good. Yeah, and it's interesting. I wonder also if because my relator is so lonely on the relational side of the whole spectrum, right? My other four strengths fall on the test side. If that is why I'm so attuned and develop that strength, it has to compensate for being by itself on that side. It has to compensate a little bit. And so that all of my work is around connection,
Yeah.
right? So how interesting is that?
it's also, you also apply your strengths though in such a powerful way. If you were, it's very hypothetical, but if you were all just relationship building, it would be about just about you would, don't get me wrong, any like there could be a relationship therapist in the next room that leads with all top, all relationship skills, and they're successful because they lean into their gifts, and that's how they show up and that's how they serve. How you are actively and brilliantly leaning into your task-oriented strengths in order to serve your clients.
Mm.
Well,
Oh my goodness. Thank you
own
so much
them.
for that. I feel so validated. Thank you. Well, you know what? Let me tell you a little side story about having all relational strengths. I actually have all my team members take this test. I want to say all of them, depends on what category they serve the practice and their clients. And one time I had a practice manager who took the test and she had all relator. I couldn't even believe it. She had 5 relationship strengths and she couldn't get anything done. I had to be in the room with her because I had to show her, and she wanted me to watch it and see her, watch her do it, and tell her and talk to her, process with her, walk through it. It wasn't just like, okay, you're training and you're on your own. I had to be in the room for her to be able to function. And I was like, okay, how is this gonna work? Right? It was crazy. And I was like, oh my goodness. So we gave it a shot, but it ended up not working because she couldn't function if I wasn't in the room and walking her through everything all of the time, not initially. Like I just had to be present for her to be able to function. I couldn't believe it. So I totally understand what you just said, that I use all my other strengths to create all of the things that I create to actually serve our clients, not just in the therapy room, but all of the things. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So what's the other side of this? What could be the needs of the strengths? Like for me to, for example, if we're going to keep using me, for me to show up with my best self, how do I honor their strengths and what are the needs that I would need to meet to use them to the best that I can? And for those people who are going to be taking the test, they could translate this for themselves. So they could figure out, okay, so if these are my strengths, then what do I need to do to make sure that I use my strength and I serve myself and my relationship right?
All right. So you lead with an executing strength. So let's go there first.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the ways that you contribute are that you provide us with concrete reality. You provide us with details, goals, processes. By the way, what I'm sharing with you, Emma, are high level, general for that domain, for the executing domain. Your strengths, your specific strengths, offer very specific contributions, and there's some typical that we could list, and a conversation helps us really articulate how you contribute. But we'll just keep it high level for now.
Yes, please.
So achiever and focus help you provide us with a concrete reality, with details, goals, with processes for how to get us from A to B. And to do that well, you need things to be practical and applicable. You appreciate a step-by-step guide for things. Just like you provide us with the goals, make sure that the goals are very clear up front. You need the goal in order to show up and perform. And also for the systems, the processes, the rules to be in place and to be understood before you dive into something. And when one of those is missing, that's when you might feel off balance or not fully aligned with what needs to happen. So if a goal is not fully stated, you're stepping into a project and no one can articulate the goal.
Right.
It doesn't align, and you can't function like you normally would. For strategic thinking, that's your futuristic and strategic. You create possibilities for us. You provide us with a direction, with information and ideas. To do it well, you need the room to imagine. You always need that high level why and what. Why are we here? Be able to give and share information with others and to be able to explore ideas and their meaning. Again, when something is missing, when your ideas are being shut down, or when you're not allowed to express or share ideas, just a give and take, then you feel shut down and you're not don't feel like you're able to perform as you normally would. And then relationship building, you connect, invite, listen, and accept us. Just create this really safe, beautiful space. In order to authentically show up, you need authentic relationship.
That's right.
You need encouragement. You're an amazing listener. You also need someone to listen. And you need to be in a place of non-judgment. Again, these are very high level according to the relationship building theme or domain, I would say. But this is a jumping point, a launch pad for you to really start thinking about what is it that I specifically need or my strengths specifically need.
Right. I love that overview of where my particular strengths fall under. Okay, so if you have these, if you're in the task doing execution place, this is what you would need, and this is how you show up. And if you're more in the relational side, this is kind of what you need and how you would show up. And then if you have more of the futuristic kind of like strategic kind of approach, same thing. Excellent. So I love that you sorted my strengths into the 4 pillars. We didn't highlight this. There's the 4th pillar, which is the influencing. And so my understanding from this conversation so far is that 4 of mine fall on the 2 of the taskmaster ones, the execution and the
taskmaster.
yes, the execution and the strategic, and the other one is the relator. But there's a 4th one, the influencing one, that I don't have any on, right? And that's where, so go right ahead. I'll let you talk.
No. In your top 5, you don't have one in your top 5. It may be you might have one in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
that's true,
or maybe not, and that's okay, because when we land in our strengths, Emma, we have influence. When we land in our strengths, we have influence. So you have influence because simply that you are applying your strengths and showing up at your best every day. Our influencers, though, let me to lay it out, spell it out, because for our influencers out there,
that's right.
You contribute by convincing us, you ignite us, you enroll us, you energize us. To do that well, you need to be able to verbally process your ideas. You need to be connected to something important, connected to a cause. You need validation. And just like you provide us with energy, you need energy.
I love that. Beautiful. And maybe we connect it more to the relationship now, right? The romantic relationship.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what is my contribution? If this is my strengths, how can I best contribute through them? And how might they get in the way if like we said before, over or underuse them? What are the needs? And just how do we play with that in a dynamic way? I have them, my husband has them. Now what? Right?
So, all right, we've established that our strengths inform how we contribute, what we need. There are easy button, how we make decisions. Let me share with you the strengths lens model. Imagine that so if you were to draw out a circle, and in the circle is a problem, or the circle represents a problem that you are trying to solve. Now, the thing is, most of the time we're looking at that circle and we're thinking of that problem that we're trying to solve, and we think that we have all of the answers. Like, I got this. I'm good. The thing is, there's only a very limited view that we have, and through the lens of our strengths. Now, if I were to, thing is that I'm never outside the problem, that circle. I'm actually in it when I step inside. Now, stepping inside, I'm actually in it. Now imagine that in the front of me, I have my strengths are all superimposed around me. So 1 to 34 strengths are superimposed around me. What's in front of me, Emma, are my top strengths. So anywhere your top 7 to 10, we have access to more than our top 5. We leverage our 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So say it's up to 8. So in 8, they're in my primary view. That's where I go when I have a problem. It's how I make decisions. And so great, I have access to those. Now, in my peripheral view, on the side of me in that circle, I have maybe numbers 9 through 16 or so. And I still have access to them, but they're not my go-to when I'm trying to figure something out. I might grab one, use it, and then tuck it back in, but they're available to me. Now, that's in my peripheral view. What's behind me sit in my blind spot. So that's numbers, say roughly 17 to 34. That's almost half of them, roughly half of them that technically really sit in my blind spot. And I have a lot less access to those. I can't really see them. It's hard for me to understand how they operate or why they do what they do or how they think the way they think.
How interesting. So the comment that you made much earlier about asking for that feedback or for that observation from our loved ones so that they could also kind of show us like, oh, well, I see this as a strength or I see this as your strength. They might be the ones that are behind us that we might be like, really? That's me? Like, I didn't realize that I'm courageous or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that we will have people in our world that we clash with, that we might have some conflict with, or we don't understand. We don't see eye to eye on things.
Right.
And oftentimes it's people that are close to us and where their strengths and how they operate and the way they see things very likely sit in my blind spot.
OMG. So you're talking shadows now. That could be a whole different podcast, but this is amazing how it's all coming together. Wow. So that's why they aggravate us because we don't see the benefit of them, whatever, but we may have them too. We're just not getting in touch with them.
Right.
And so whatever bothers us about somebody else is we usually have. That's the shadows work.
Yeah. It's very likely, right? Also have, but I mean, in the context of from a strengths lens perspective,
sure,
and assuming that we have, it's very likely that my strengths might sit in your blind spot, and your strengths might sit in my blind spot, and that means that there's an opportunity, a greater opportunity for us to clash because we don't understand how the other person operates or why they operate the way that they do.
Nice.
And and then the thing we don't understand, we tend to reject.
Yep.
So we go on a really interesting journey when we begin to understand, okay, so intellectually we get, I can do things in that you might not do as readily and vice versa. Okay, we understand that. But when we take a look at the 34 strengths and start to think about, I have adaptability, maybe I lead with adaptability, but it might be number 34 for my husband.
Right.
So then where does that take us? So as far as he's concerned, my adaptability, he doesn't understand why I need this flexibility and all of these options and really, Nermeen, another pair of shoes and what have you.
Right.
So, but when we start to look at strengths and adaptability and all of the other strengths, when we start to look at how my strength could be in someone else's blind spot, that understanding that they don't see it, they don't understand it, allows us to take the thing that we used to reject and maybe come to a place where we can tolerate it, because now I understand, okay, the thing is, I don't understand it because it's not something that I have. So we've shed a layer
Mm.
of a barrier that might be between us. And I'm able to see a little bit more clearly that, okay, I get that this is something that comes naturally for you and is important to you. The next thing, as I now that I can tolerate that we have this difference, I might start to notice more openly when you're using it actively. And I might notice the positive. I might notice how you contribute in a really interesting way, or the impact that you made in an area that I really didn't know how to handle. And so now I become a little bit more accepting of that difference between us.
Mm.
Later on, now that I've become more accepting, I might invite you to use that in a very specific situation that really helps me out. And now I begin to appreciate that gift that you have that's been this difference between us. And now, what a blessing it is that you're able to do that and bring that into our relationship and look at what we can accomplish together because of our combined strengths.
Amazing. I love how that all comes together. And I could just totally integrate that and weave that into relationship theory, right? And one of the things that we lead with is that opposites attract, right? So I might have this strength, you have this strength, and they seem so opposite, or they seem, um, from the negative side, people might say like, "We don't understand each other. We can't get along. We're incompatible." I hate that word, right? So people throw around these things. And then if you instead look at it from the other side, oh, this is a blessing. This is an addition. This is now a way that we complement each other.
It just changes the conversation from
Mm-hmm.
being incompatible, which will strike,
Yes, we're
to
striking.
to be that we do complement each other. There are things that we have in common, which is part of maybe what where we were like-minded enough about some things
Right.
that's where we created a connection. And early in the
Mm.
relationship, we see the opposites and we see them as a blessing, and later on they start to get on our nerves. And then how do we get past that? It's by seeing the blessings in those gifts and how they enrich our relationship and the what we can do together because
Amazing.
because each of us brings something special.
Exactly. So good. Beautiful, beautiful. So any thoughts on how do we use that then to create a well-oiled machine for our home, our everyday life, so that we can create the best epic relationship, like what I call a successful relationship in our best life, a meaningful life.
It's so helpful to have these conversations. And again, thankfully, we have tools like the Clifton Strengths and several other strengths-based tools that we can leverage that help us give us a language, something that we can kind of rally around and get our heads around and speak about.
Mm-hmm.
And a really, really special conversation that couples can have with each other is, this is how I see my strength. This is how I've noticed it, I contribute. This is how I show up. How
Mm.
do you see it? And what is
Yes.
what is the impact of me showing up like this? Like when I use this strength, what does that mean for you? How does
When I
that bless you? How does that help you? And in a very positive, in a positive light.
right.
And then on the flip side, when we're comfortable and we're lifted up talking about the positives, the way that we contribute, then we can go a little deeper and say, this is something that frustrates me sometimes
Mm-hmm.
about my strength. And this
Mm-hmm.
is something or it's something that I'm noticing that's missing, and it's something that I need. And again, once we've been lifted up, when we're in a positive place, we can have that objective conversation. When we feel like we're owning our strengths, we're more able to ask for what we need.
Beautiful.
And then it's an opportunity to get closer and see the compatibility.
I love that. Thank you for tying that together. So nice. Exactly. So I really appreciate the concept of, okay, this is my strength. This is how I think I contribute with my strength. What do you think? How am I using my strength to contribute to us? What is the impact of my strength on you and on our relationship in a good way? Like how am I contributing? What kind of impact am I making? Am I having on you and on us? And then once all the yumminess is taken out of like the whole conversation and it's all put on the table and it's enjoyed, then we could also go to the next level, which is like, okay, and then how does my strength maybe have a negative impact on you? I know how it does it on me. This is how it might do it for me. This is what I need as a result so that I could actually use my strength for the good and not for the bad. So I'm the hero, not the villain. I don't know. And then for yourself, when I show up with this other side, what's the negative impact on you? If I overdo my strength, what's the impact on you? If I underdo my strength, what's the impact on you? This might be kind of like another level of conversation here. And I love that that's what it takes. Let's just be curious. Let's play. Let's chat, right? Let's just play with this new assessment and how do we use it? And we do the 5 love languages assessment, and we had that conversation. We had that language woven in. This could be the next one, right? So how do we capitalize on our strengths? How do we support our strengths? And how do we use them for the good, not overdo them, not underdo them? How do we moderate them? How do we have good impact on each other and ourselves, on the relationship, and ultimately on our life? How do we use them to create that life that we want? So
Yeah.
good. So, Nermeen, any last thoughts for couples, partners, how to use this, how to support each other, how to bring out the strengths and use them the best that they can for themselves and their partners?
Each of us has unique gifts, and the invitation is for us to uncover them and to
Mm,
own them and seek opportunities to use them to bless our relationships. And
beautiful.
and not only that, but also how can I seek out and really notice the gifts of my partner?
Oh my gosh, what a perfect note to end on. Yes, exactly. Because we're very good at noticing the stuff that we don't like, right? That's the conversation that we have in sessions all the time. We just notice the things that don't work and how they don't meet our needs as opposed to the beautiful things that they bring.
Yeah.
Um, Terrific. And that's why we do have the appreciations. We start all of our sessions with appreciation. So this could be added to them. And I notice that you use your strength this way, or like this. I really appreciate how this particular strength impacted us. Amazing. So, so good. Well, Noreen, I'm going to put all of your contact information and all of the awesomeness in the show note. And if you want to tell us what people could get from you, I think that you have a little gift that you want to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
And then they could get the details through the links and everything. I have everything on the show notes, but just that you could just mention it so people know what it is.
Sure. Thank you for that opportunity, Emma,
Of
to
course.
share. Two things I have for
Yep.
your audience. The first is I was had the beautiful opportunity to participate in an anthology last year, and I wrote a
Mm,
chapter called Hidden Potential. And it's really about, it's my story about how I fell in love with strengths and some of the nuggets I've taken along the way that I hope would be useful to you to start exploring your strengths and figuring out how to use them and apply them to enrich your life.
nice.
So I'd love to, happy to share that chapter with your audience,
Mm-hmm.
and would love to, if any of this struck a chord with you and you'd like to take a look and see what you might need individually, personally, or as a couple, perhaps to go deeper into strengths.
Mm-hmm.
I would love the opportunity to have a conversation, and would share my calendar link to hop on a call.
Lovely. Well, thank you for that. So we'll share that chapter to inspire people and see how they could use this to grow and enrich their relationship and nurture it. And if they want to take it a step further beyond what we talked about and beyond just taking the assessment, so they understand what the assessment is and how to use it, to connect with you for further conversation. Very good. Well, thank you so very much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I learned a lot about myself and I took a bunch of nuggets to use in my sessions with couples as well. So I totally appreciate it. And I thank you for being here today.
I loved our conversation, Emma, and so appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you a little bit and be here with you. Thank you.
My pleasure. And for the listeners, I will see you at the next one. Bye.